Hey, folks. Welcome to Split Bill. Today's guest is Mr. Jaxon Haldane he's from Canada. I want to find out where he's living, but he's been all over. I know he's been all over the world. But I think at the moment he's up in Canada somewhere. And I met him in Oklahoma City or near there, Edmond or something, at the Bottle Cap Barn. I have friends there. Had a little soiree one night after a gig. And
Soiree.
Yeah. And anyway, so we're going to get it kicked off here. I invited JJ to sing with me a song that we wrote about being not quarantined, but trapped. Trapped. Hey, Split. Hey, Scott McCarley. How you doing, buddy? This is a song about being trapped in a house during a flood. And so kind of rings a little bit with our experience we're having these days. Feel a little less trapped than I would if it was a flood. It's been raining since Thursday at noon. We'll all be swimming and it doesn't stop soon. The bridge is out so we can't get to town. I guess we're stuck here till the water goes down.
Rivers been rising, took out the bridge. I guess we're lucky that we live on a beach. It hasn't been this high since I was a kid. We talked about moving, then we never did. Rain is falling, lightning's flashing, water's rising, thunder's crashing. We're stacking sandbags day out and day in. We were laughing, but now we're praying.
Well, we would have seen it coming when the clouds rolled in, but the curtains were drawn and we just can't win. Well, we're high on coffee because we're low on beer. We'll have to live on food and water till the road gets clear.
Rain is falling, lightning's flashing, water's rising, thunder's crashing. We're stacking sandbags day out and day in. We were laughing, but now we're praying. Well, we played all the games, we smoked all the weed, we found all the ways that a human can breathe. Had a lot of laughs, had a lot of fun. I just hope it stops raining before the baby comes. Lord, let it stop raining before the baby comes. And there is no baby, to be clear.
This is not an announcement, though.
Yeah.
We wrote that from the perspective of my niece, not attributing any of those actions to her, but just that she and her husband and 2 children were trapped in Missouri in a flood. So thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
See y'all.
Jaxon has disappeared. Now he's come back. So I lost him. He must have gone to the.
He once was lost.
Here he is.
I'll be back.
Hey, thought we lost you there, Jaxon.
Yeah. Something dropped there for a second, but I'm back. I think we'll be okay now. I think I switched to a more stable signal here.
Okay, good. So you're a little fuzzier now than you were before. Visually.
That's unfortunate.
What? Yeah, you're fairly handsome man. Would like to see your face. Can you look on the Facebook feed and see if his face is blurry?
Blurry? I just looked at it.
Can anybody tell us? Paul Davis, Linda Davis.
Blurry.
A little blurry.
A little blurry, eh?
Yeah. A little blurry.
I'm not sure. Is there any kind of what are you using?
Let me see if I can check my settings here.
Yeah, and when he moves, especially. If he can just be completely still.
My guest today, folks, is Mr. Jaxon Haldane, singer-songwriter from Canada, I believe. We'll know more soon, but it's everyone says it's blurry. Yeah.
Yeah. I just tried to improve my camera quality there.
I see.
Yeah, it didn't seem to do much good. Now you're gone altogether. There you go, back. Jaxon also played in a band called the D Rangers, maybe still does, and also tours with Gordy Tentries from the Yukon. Sounds okay. I don't know. Maybe it's okay if it's blurry. They can see me and look at me. I'm bald and wearing glasses.
Yeah, I don't know what to do other than maybe trying to reconnect again. Should I pop out and try and reconnect and see if that?
Sounds fine, right?
Yeah, I think you're fine. Just we'll have to just
Okay.
live with it. I think it's not too bad. They can still see your expressions. So Jackson, where are you?
I'm in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada.
Okay, you're in Winnipeg.
Just started getting summery here.
Are you
That is
from
home
there?
for me. Been home for me most of my life. Yeah, I'm from here. Born in Manitoba lived here pretty much all my life, barring a few years spent in other places doing other things.
Yeah, I know you spent some time in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, that's the place I spent. Yeah, I've spent a good chunk of time down there and got developed some community down there as well. Great place, great music scene.
Yeah. Did you ever run into John Fulbright? He's about my favorite singer in the whole world.
100%, man. Huge fan of John's. Yeah, great guy, great writer, great player, man. Yeah, he's a special talent.
I know he kind of practically grew up at the Blue Door, and that was one of the probably the premier listening room in Oklahoma City that I know of.
Definitely.
Anyway. Bottle Cap Barns is awesome, but it's not a public venue, so.
Yeah, and it only ever existed to be an annex for the shows the Blue Door can facilitate. You know what I mean? There's always been the same scene sort of populating both places. But what Greg's done at the Blue Door is, some of the most important work done in that area for folk music. That's for sure.
First time I heard Greg Johnson, for those of you who don't know, Greg at the Blue Door has run that place for 30 years or more, I think. And he first played John Fulbright when he was probably 19 or 20 years old. He just come out with a demo, and I was in his office with Fred, and he was like, "Listen to this kid," and he was promoting him at the time and managing him, I think. But Fred and I were both a little pissed off. He was so good, nobody.
There was a lot of people on that. Yeah, for sure.
He played the Moccasin Creek Festival last year and was supposed to play again this year, but we had to cancel it. So it's a festival that I have down here in June.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. That's unfortunate. These circumstances meaning that so much isn't going to happen, and only so much pivoting can be done. And you've been doing something like that for so many years in a row. You don't pivot for a year. You just take a year off, and so hopefully it's just 1 year, and everybody makes it back and gets to hit the play button again after the pause.
Are things pretty locked down there where you are?
Things are loosening up just now. Like I'd say the last 2 weeks, there's been a slow loosening up of things. We managed our curve pretty well here in Manitoba. We're by nature a little isolated anyway. We've always been geographically and culturally a little isolated anyway. So some of those measures came a little easier to us, and I think controlling some of the some of the vectors where it was a little easier from our particular locale. Same with Gordy in the Yukon. It's just there's not as many people, and there's not as many people coming in or going out. And we kept our numbers pretty low. And we've actually, this is, I think, I haven't checked today, but I think this may be day 7 in a row with no new cases. So that's pretty substantial.
So they're restricting travel in and out?
They haven't opened the borders. Like the Canadian borders are closed. They've recommended against travel between provinces in Canada, but we're only about an hour and a half from the Ontario border here in Winnipeg, and a lot of our cottage country for people who live in Winnipeg and in Manitoba, a lot of our cottage country is just over the border in Ontario. And this is the big long weekend. Today is actually Victoria Day here in Canada, and lots of people have been crossing that Ontario border this weekend for the first time in probably about 8 weeks. So that's a big deal, and we'll see what the repercussions are. Hopefully we've got things contained enough that if we can open things up and not suffer any dire consequences. But where are you at exactly?
We're about 200 miles south of Chicago.
Okay, we're
right on I-70. So if you were looking from perspective of Oklahoma City, you would just take 44 all the way to St. Louis, and then we're about 100 miles east of St. Louis.
Okay.
We're the sort of the crossroads of America. If you drive through Effingham, you'll see the largest cross in North America as you drive by.
Sounds like Oklahoma City and Effingham are competing for a few titles here. America's Crossroads and the largest cross. I think those are all things Oklahoma might claim as well. Edmond, Oklahoma, probably more specifically.
Yeah. Hey, my friend Susie says she's really excited to hear from you. You remember Susie? Susie Miller?
Susie Miller, absolutely, yeah. Hi, Susie.
She's listening as she does every day. She's one of my best friends in the world. So, and she and Daryl are listening in, taking a break from gardening.
One of the big gigs canceled for the D Rangers summer was a festival Susie's working on up near Edmonton. So, that's unfortunate that another one that's on pause. But yeah,
I would have seen you there.
Yeah, exactly.
That has not transpired. Hey, we're getting into about 10 minutes here. You, JJ specifically asked if you'd play the Crystal song. If you feel like doing that now, we'd love to hear it.
Absolutely, I'll do that now.
Cool. I'm going to go out. Sure. I'm going to go off the screen here, and I will see you when you get done.
Okay, sounds good. My soul's an old leaky basement. Regret is a meaningful word. Try to muster luster from the concrete of memory. Once it's poured and it's set and it's cured, tomorrows don't seem to mean nothing when you're thinking on making the scene. Preying on teens, laying beatings on queens. What I did just came naturally. I met some with doom in their future, and I met some with power and grace. I met one named Crystal Tornado, twisted and laid me completely to waste. It started out roses and rainbows, but it soon became briar and hail. Soda pop sweet on occasion, but mostly bitter as India Pale. She drained all the life from my body. I was her little puppet to play. She led me to strife and a beggarly life, and then drove all my loved ones away. She never cared much to have me. She couldn't bear setting me free. Pure evil distillate, her name was Crystal. She turned her pistol on me. Years on the street down in Houston. Everything that I owned was my last. I got low when the bottle was empty. I got high with some kind ones that passed. Stayed with some fellas in Utah. Shared stories of squatting a wife. Each one of us hitched to the same crooked bitch. She's hot and cold, she's quick with a knife. She's like a poisonous arrow, flung from a place you can't see. Soft as a thistle, her name was Crystal. She turned her pistol on me. She came to my bedroom this morning, all twitchy and wanting her way. I may survive to the end of this drive, but I'll probably arrive DOA. The old leaky basement is flooding, but there's one debt we're all born to pay. Though I may be dying, I still can't help but pine the crystal that made me this way. She never cared much to have me. She couldn't bear setting me free. Pure evil distillate, her name was Crystal. She turned her pistol on me. Pure evil distillate, her name was Crystal. She turned her pistol on me.
I love that song.
Thanks.
Hey,
Thanks, man.
So I especially there's a bunch of lines in that song that are pretty clever, which is something I always am taken by. But the line, I really like the line about bitter as India Pale. Are you opposing?
Yeah, that's not a line that would have worked 20 years ago. You know, that wouldn't have carried the weight or the populism that it does nowadays.
Well, it might have worked 200 years ago, but back when they actually started making India Pale, but just not until about 10 years ago. Well, I love that song. It's a really simple structure, the song. And that's, it kind of reminds me of a lot of the people I listen to a lot. People like Steve Earle and John Prine, and Fred Eaglesmith, among others, who have influenced me, but have let me know that it's okay to write a simple song. Structural.
Challenge me too. I feel like a lot of the times, you know, like it's easy to try and sound unique by being esoteric, but there's something so much more triumphant about writing something you think is good and, you know, true to you and still kind of in its own way relevant, and, you know, and then not have to rely on the esoteric things. Just work with these really meat and potatoes concepts and still work in those simple idioms and deliver something you're proud of. Those are always the more triumphant tunes. And that people like Fred, who, you know, always, I could go back to some of those songs, or Steve Earle's a great example as well. Guy Clark, just simple. You know, I love a 2-chord song. You know, when I go to the Hank Williams catalog, I go to Ramblin' Man, I go to Jambalaya. You know, like those are real big touchstones for me. So I love a simple 2-chord song. So if you can pull it off, you know. We talked about Scott Nolan a bit briefly. As a Winnipegger, one of, you know, my brothers in arms here in this city, and you know, if you can write a campfire classic nowadays on 2 chords, you've done something really good. You know.
Yeah, well, certainly Scott's one of the greats in my opinion, and I'm a big fan.
Agreed.
I have a vivid memory. Before I knew Scott, I only knew him as the guy who wrote Bad Liver and a Broken Heart. But I was at the Park Theater in Winnipeg, and Blue and I were biding our time making. And Susie was there with us, and we were making paper airplanes and throw them off the balcony during, you know, not you know, for those of you who don't know the park, it's the balcony is actually over the lobby, so it's not in the theater. But we had a lot of fun with that. We were making ones that would go like this, you know, and there was a giant Scott Nolan poster, and I asked, I think his name was Ryan or Matt or somebody, the guy who ran the place. I said, "Can we use this giant poster to make Eric? To make a paper airplane?" And he's like, "I don't think Scott would like that." I said, "Oh, okay, all right." I was pissed off at Scott for a year after that, but anyway, I'm kidding. But anyway, I saw he shared our post. So Maybe he's listening.
Right on. Well, maybe.
So let's talk about Willie P. Bennett. Speaking of great songwriters, that we were just talking about some of our influences and stuff. I understand that you are sort of the keeper of the legacy. Is that right, with Willie P. Bennett?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I think there's like I'm Frodo, right? And there's an entire fellowship of the Willie P. You know what I mean? It's not just me, but I'm definitely playing the Frodo part on this one.
I know Washboard Hank is part of it.
Washboard Hank, Pat Temple, Susie's been quite helpful. There's quite a few people I've leaned on. Scott Nolan. I've leaned on a few people to bear different responsibilities with the Legacy Project, which is kind of like a website where we still host a bunch of covers, basically Willie's stuff. It was initially a way for us to keep celebrating his material without having to find a workaround for mechanical royalties, and we just gave it all away. And we weren't hosting any of his original recordings. We could get cool folks to come in and bang off their versions of some of his great tunes and host them there, and at least keep some memory alive, right? Because it was like a while where Willie's memory was like 11 boxes of CDs in his sister's closet, you know what I mean? And it was like, that's all that remained of the legacy. And so we did that, coordinated that little celebration site. And then from there, some other work's gone on behind the scenes. And I think, there's probably been some work that's been, laid undone for a while that needs to be buttoned up and finished. But I think we're not too far from being able to offer Willie's original recordings again, at least digitally, distribute them digitally, either potentially for some sort of fee where we raise money towards some good in Willie's name, or else just give it all away free and let people have at that catalog, because it's such great music, and it's hard for people who want to get into it to find a way to get into it and do it in a sort of formal way where they exchange some money for the privilege, right? Like most people are finding a friend who can burn a CD, share a file, loan him a vinyl, and this is how people are getting introduced to Willie's, works. These younger musicians coming up, and I actually think that that's the work that I think is most important as far as honoring Willie. Like Willie was a friend and a mentor and a hero, and meant about as much to me as a person could. Who didn't actually like give birth to me or something, genetically connected to me. And, I think the most important work that I can still do for him is probably to make sure that the younger generation coming up has those touchstones, understands what that important role that played in getting Canadian independent music basically to where it is today, and understand that it plays this really important foundational role. And I think we can all keep drawing back to that well for inspiration and keep covering those songs, keep putting them on records. I think like if I can keep his music in front of the younger set of musicians, whether or not we can ever build a bigger audience for Willie than he had when he was alive, I think his relevance and influence as an artist still has a lot of runway if there's an ability to get that music in front of these kids coming up wanting to find these things, because there's that phase you go where you crave, you want to find the things that resonate with you. And Willie resonates with so many people, right? Like when you get it in front of them and they get a chance to sink their teeth into that stuff, you realize how much meat is there, right? And yeah, if we could do that for kids, I think Willie's legacy lives on without anyone having to push it in front of the masses. We just need to make sure these kids can still access it. Especially, I think for me, Canadian kids. I want Canadian kids to know this is a huge part of the legacy that they now want to take part in.
Yeah, I was talking to Tom Wilson last week, and he was going on about Willie and his influence, and I think that it's interesting to me that he's always been more present in the lives of musicians than in the lives of the audience, and so that's a tribute to him, I suppose. But it's also a shame in a way, But hey, could you sing a Willie song for us?
Oh yeah, sure could.
Okay, I'm gonna get out of the way. We'll talk a little bit more about him when we get back.
Sounds great. It's a really pretty one that Willie wrote with Pat Temple and Spencer Evans. None of those guys ever got around to recording it. There's miles full of highway, weary and forlorn. He stops at a roadhouse just to call her on the phone. The waitress's blue eyes touch more than his soul. Is the taste of temptation worth the shame that is born? Is that a man being a fool, or a fool being a man? He's a blue collar, tired and true. He's pulled long loads over rough roads. He put the kids through school. Spent more time worrying than making plans. And he'd always been faithful to the ring on her hand. Is that a man being a fool, or a fool being a man? He's walking a fine line, ready to fall on those lonely blue nights. How her blue eyes could call, and he'd always been faithful till fate took his hand. Is that a man being a fool, or a fool being a man? Being a fool, or a fool being a man? Being a fool, or a fool being a man? Being a fool, or a fool being a man?
That's just great country music right there.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah, I love that song, man. I love that song.
Wonderful. Well, I have to confess that I only knew Willie for many years as a mandolin player for the Flying Squirrels.
Yeah,
and I got to meet him a few times and play shows with him before he died, but I didn't get to know him well, And he died about 3 days or so before the band was supposed to play at a gig that I had booked for them in Texas and was promoting. I was promoting a dance hall down in the middle of nowhere. And I think everybody held up until after the show that night. And then there was a very long session of drinking too much, and Matty Simpson being commanded to play all the Willie songs till about 2 a.m, 3 a.m.
Oh man.
So that was quite a scene in the Von Minden Hotel in Schulenburg, Texas. But anyway, sad to see him gone way too early. And it's been 14 years, no, 13 years now or something.
Since 08, so that's
08.
11 years. It was 11 years. No, 12 years as of this past February. Yeah, wow.
Yeah. So it's been funny that I started this series because I wanted to keep the music alive and get to know some of our artists, like especially the Moccasin Creek Festival artists and stuff, because people see them play on stage, but they don't actually get to hang with them, right? And so many interesting stories. But it ends up, I know so many musicians from Canada that, like, I think 4 of the last 5 interviews I've done have been Tom Wilson, Mike Kerr from Toronto, Gordy from Yukon, and then now you from Winnipeg. So it's like, and then I did Brock Zeman before that, and anyway, you actually produced, if I'm not mistaken, you actually produced the last record that Willie made. Is that right?
Yeah, it never formally came out. I mean, I think it sort of circulated in that bootleg fashion that things do, and I think there's been some post-production work done on it in the last few years, and there's even like a really great sounding master circulating that that even kind of has the blessing of the family. But that was a real kind of fluke. Willie was down with the Fred band because he'd had his first heart attack, and he was just sort of holding up at home, and him and I were touching base every few weeks on the phone just to see what was going on. And he said he was coming to BC, and I said, well, why don't you make some time on the way here or on the way back and stop in at our place, make some recordings. We had this set up, and we were making lots of records, and we were adding kind of decent gear into the signal chain more and more all the time, and it was becoming a decent little facility to do some ad hoc recording for sure. And I thought, doesn't have to have any ambition on it, but chance for us to hang out. You could maybe sketch some songs or make some demos or who knows, whatever, And so he popped in on the way through, and then he sat with some rough mixes, came back on the way back, did a few more and tweaked a few things, and then sat with it for a while. That was like October. And by January, he was really committed. He was like, send me the hard drive. I'm going to move ahead. We're going to get this done. And February, the hard drive was still in the mail en route to get to him when he passed. And so it kind of languished in the custody of the family for a long time. Pat Temple again managed to sort of get it out from under them long enough to get it mastered and all the post-production done on it. It's really fabulous sounding record. I mean, like, I'm pretty impressed. Whenever I listen to it, there was so much work done in post. It makes it sound like I knew what I was doing when I recorded the thing. But it was one of those happy accidents where things sounded good. And Willie was really in a place where he had these great songs, and he knew they were great songs, and he was emoting really clearly, like it was so apt to do. And I just captured something that really, I think, hadn't really been captured on a Willie record before, and something that a lot of people had asked for over the years. That kind of that thing that we see from the stage when we see those rare glimpses of these amazing performances. How do we get that on CD? How do we get that, to listen to at home? And there really wasn't anything like that. And then this, Willie was happy with it. Like, for the first time maybe in his career, was happy with a really naked recording, and he was going to just release the things the way they are. They're just him. There's like no other people on it. All overdubs were done by him, and he had some fun with it. It's just a really cool thing to do. In the end, there was 19 cuts, maybe, like, of which probably 15 are totally usable. And I know of the first batch, 10 were mastered and kind of ready to launch, ready to basically release. And I don't know, that might happen at some point. It's just so hard nowadays to think about, you can't monetize any of this stuff. So it's almost like it has to be done some other way. I almost think that maybe just giving everything away digitally is the way to go. Just keep it alive. Let people come to it. Let people consume it. Let people devour it. Willie didn't leave any kids behind, and none of his family are interested particularly in seeing putting the work in to see any commercial returns on this stuff. So I think it's just, that's where it is. It's like, it's at this place where it just probably needs to be finally put on a place where it can be consumed by people online. And but I think other than that, everything's sort of ready to go. So the more I talk about it, the more I feel like shit, I gotta get to work here.
My work is done here. Well, I got to hear the recording. I don't have my own copy of it, but I've gotten to hear it. I think Susie played it for me, or I think Hank tried to give me a copy, and I may have gotten it, and then I was on the road and it got lost or something. But
I do.
Yeah, Anyway, so you're also in a band called the D Rangers, or have been in a band. I mean, how long has that been going on?
20 years. This is our 20th year anniversary as a band. We took a little bit of a break for a few years in the middle there somewhere, and we're not anywhere as active as we were in the early days. But in the late 90s, when alternative country music was just sort of starting to burgeon and define itself, like I heard the term way before I heard like Uncle Tupelo or Wilco or Sunvolt, and I didn't really know what it sounded like. I just had this idea in my head what it sounded like. And then when I did hear those bands, I was like, oh no, that's not what I wanted, and and I still have a place for some of that music for sure, but it just didn't live up to the vision I had of what that must be, right? And then I heard the Bad Livers, which was a band from Austin, Texas, from the late 90s, and that was it. It was like, okay, that's the thing I wanted this to be. And so from that there, I sort of had a path musically, and the D Rangers were really formed around the idea of doing that thing where being sort of reverent enough of the old traditions, but really sort of drawing our inspiration from punk rock and this real independent rock aesthetic that was out there at the time, sort of dwindling, but there at the time. And from there, the D Rangers just sort of became a fun band where we just had no limits or fears about the material we tackled, or how it was presented, or where we were. It's still an amazingly fun band. One of those things where a band of brothers, where we literally found the four guys we liked hanging out with the most and started a band, and eventually it was good enough to put on a stage.
That's great. That's a great story. That's a rare story, is what that is.
It is kind of, exactly.
The Bad Livers were part of when I moved to Austin, 1994. The Bad Livers were in full swing at that time, and I was just challenged to post my 10 most influential albums, and that was one of them. Delusions of Banjo was one of the top 10.
Oh, totally. That was a total 90-degree turn for me. It was like, I really stood up and listened when I heard that. Yeah.
There were two bands at that time that I listened to all the time. One was Kill Billy. Did you ever hear Kill Billy? Absolutely.
Those
guys are nuts.
Oh, totally.
I kept saying, you can't do that.
Wasn't maybe like Danny Barnes in that band to start with, and then Lewis Myers?
I think that Mark Rubin was in that band before he was
Mark
in the
Rubin
Bad Livers.
was in that band for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. If Danny Barnes was in that band, I didn't know it, but that's great information.
I think just for a brief period at the early on, and then I think Lewis Myers, who went on to do the sort of reinvigorate the Folk Alliance conference.
He also did sort of South by Southwest, didn't he?
Yes, also started South by Southwest. That's no small feather in the cap, is it? Yeah, exactly. That's the guy. Yeah.
Cool. Do you have can you give us a taste of the D Rangers? Something that would be sort of representative of the style?
Yeah, I think I can probably do something like that. Love and lust, loneliness can pull apart your soul, or push you in directions you oughtn't know to go. I'm looking down a long, long road. All my eyes can see is love and lust, loneliness, more dark times for me. I'm thinking about Houston. I'm thinking about Spain. Thinking maybe someplace else is bound to ease my brain. But I'd spend a lot of money and it would all turn out the same. No love and lust, loneliness, dark times here to stay. Well, if I had some money, I'd waste it on Jim Beam. But if I had you, honey, you'd want me to go clean. But you're the worst addiction, a curse just like cocaine. You're warm for 20 minutes, and I'm chasing you for days. Love and lust, loneliness can pull apart your soul, push you in direction you oughtn't not to go. I'm looking down a long, long road. All my eyes can see love and lust, loneliness, more dark times for me. Just love and lust, loneliness, more dark times for me.
That's ripping, man. I like it. You know what that song sounds like?
Fun, high energy band for sure. What's it sound like?
It sounds like Lawrence, Kansas to me. That music
man.
just sounds like something.
Really? Well,
that scene there in Lawrence is so much fun.
Rayfield from Lawrence?
Well, they're from Wichita.
Wichita, okay. But yeah, that's got Walnut Valley written all over it, man.
Did you go to the Winfield?
I went there a couple times. Yeah, a couple times, and Bluegrass Festival sort of blew my mind wide open in my early 20s. I got to really immerse myself in that through the festival culture, and yeah, really have a lot of respect for that scene. It does so much to keep the music alive.
That's why I go to Winfield when I can, not every year anymore, but I used to go every year for a long time.
Yeah, I think in moving to Oklahoma, a big influence on me really early on in feeling like I had a bona fide connection to the music was like having Byron Berline's shop up in Guthrie, which is like, right. It was probably at the time about a 15-minute ride from my mom's place, and I could go there and man, I could buy like, old stock National finger picks that probably, for all I know, belonged to Bill Keith or something, or like, they're just these like things that have been sitting in a box in Byron's possession since the 60s and stuff you just couldn't get anywhere else. And then the magic moments were like when you'd catch, be able to eavesdrop on like some really cool conversation. J.D. Manus, the steel guitar player from the Desert Rose Band and Sweetheart of the Rodeo album, like he showed up to do a workshop there, and him and Byron were just like shooting the shit about the day that Clarence White died and like who called who and how did you hear, and they're both like recalling the moment when they heard that Clarence White died, and I'm just a fly on the wall sitting there, surrounded by millions of dollars worth of vintage instruments, listening to this conversation, going 21 years old, going like, oh my God, I can't believe this is right here at my fingertips, you know? So it was lots of kind of little experiences like that at Byron's shop and his festival that he ran for a few years really, delivered for a hungry appetite that I had for bluegrass at that time.
I'll tell you a funny, very, very short, funny story. I used to go to Winfield every year, and it was always right before the one in Guthrie. People just called it Guthrie, I think, didn't they?
Yeah, exactly.
And it was a great festival. It was a big deal festival. And actually, the artists there were more like in line with my taste than Walnut Valley. But I went to Walnut Valley just to hang out with my family and friends and stuff. But anyway, I was living in my truck and I had nowhere to go, so I just hung out for about 3 or 4 days in Winfield and in other places nearby there, Peabody and et cetera. And I think I actually went up and hung out with Corey up at Love Garden Records. You remember that place in Lawrence? I can't think of Corey's last name, but he's a great musician from up in Lawrence. Anyway, so I'm just killing time waiting for this festival. Go down on Friday for the festival. Well, I found out that I had it wrong. It was the next weekend. So I just I just camped in the campground that weekend and just hung out by myself for 2 days.
Oh wow!
Yeah, there was nothing going on.
Never did get to that festival?
No, I never made it. No, I had somewhere to be. I had somewhere to be after that. So I was laughing at myself. I was good at wasting time back then.
Yeah.
Anyway, so anybody else you want to tell us about? This is, folks, if you're joining in, this is Jaxon Haldane, a singer-songwriter from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Ontario, and he is also part of the seminal Canadiana band, the D Rangers, and I know they're very popular. I heard so much about the D Rangers from various different people, and I never got to see you guys play before, so I was really looking forward to seeing you at Pembina River Nights, but that's not going to happen this year. But
maybe next year we'll both end up back there.
Yeah, I went for 10 years straight to Pembina, and then last year I finally didn't go for the first time, but yeah. I'd like to go back.
In 2002, 3, 4, we were spending a lot of time with the Fred band at that time, like just between Fred events. We could never cross the border. That was one thing about the D Rangers. I think that also added to our mystique was that we had one guy with a pod charge that could never get across the border. And so we could only do these Fred things on this side of the border, but there was always enough of them, between the train trips and the times that they'd come through Manitoba, or we'd, get called out to do the Elmer Festival or whatever it was. And we would just seem to be immersed with those guys every 3 months or something. There'd be a significant hang. And I met a lot of amazing people in that circle. And we made some, like, in very short periods of time, I feel like we made lifelong friends, some that we haven't seen since. We might have met them, one weekend 18 years ago or something, and they remember us and we remember them. And yeah, it's kind of it was a beautiful time, and that scene was such an important. There were so many important moments for me running with those cats. Like, I mean, Fred and Willie were giants, but like the music Roger Marin introduced me to, and just the times I spent with Darcy and Dan and Washboard, it was just there. Those were incredible times. Some of the best music I ever got to be part of was in those years and in that scene. So yeah, if you're running into people who remember me, it's those folks.
Yeah. One of the things about I was with the traveling steam show for about 5 years, and one of the things we did a lot of shows, 200 shows a year. Most of them were just us, right? But in the summertime, when we would make that trip, we would make the trip from Port Dover all the way out to Victoria Island or Vancouver Island, Victoria, and then back. And there were festivals all along the way, Trout River being one of them. Of course, South Country Fair. And it was just so great because we see not always all the same musicians, but just hanging backstage with Brock Zeman asking me to try to fix his alternator or something. Like we just get drunk and like I'm like I don't know anything about alternators. you want me to work on your fuel delivery system? I got that covered, but it was just a crack up. It was just so much fun, and to see them over and over again. 2 weeks later, and it was just great. It was just a great society to be a part of.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So
Absolutely.
Gordy Tentries is he's piping up here, which he's inclined to do. Did you know Roger Meredith?
Yes, he is.
Did you like John Hartford? He says, "Tell us your favorite Willie story." Is this something that you want to do, Jaxon? Tell us your favorite Willie story, or do you have one?
I don't know if I have a favorite Willie story. Like, I don't know. And most of my favorite Willie stories would be like third or fourth hand because most of the hilarious stuff happened before I came on the scene. He's a little bit more mellow by the time I came on the scene. But
yeah, I heard a lot of wild stories about him, but that was not my experience. My experience was, his sound check and shit. He was working hard in those days.
That was amazing. It was an amazing thing to witness.
Yeah.
Whether he was actually calling out the right frequencies or not, that was amazing to witness.
Yeah.
Sure seemed to have a handle on that shit.
For those of you who never saw it, he would put Fred's big cowboy hat on and stand in front of the microphone and all the microphones, and remember that, and he would check it with the hat on.
And he put on the voice. He put on whoever voiced his mic he was checking, right? Freight train. He'd be checking Fred's mic.
Yeah. Oh man, what a treat! What a gem! All right,
800. Bring the 800 down. Yeah. Okay. Freight train.
Yeah. He knew that. He knew that soundboard, man.
He did. He did.
Hey, Mike Lynch is popping off here. Mike Lynch, how you doing, buddy? He says hello. He's going to be my guest on Thursday. I don't have a guest for tomorrow yet, or for Wednesday, so I don't know. I might just play some songs. I don't know I was holding out. I had Reckless Kelly's lead singer Willie Braun lined up, and that didn't work out. So anyway, hey, it's been great talking to you, Jaxon. You got one more song for us before we call today?
Sorry, what's that?
You have one more song for us before we call it a day?
I could definitely do that. Yeah, I'll send you off with
anything you want to plug. What's your website?
No, man, there's nothing to plug. I don't know what to do. There's no gigs to plug. There's man, yeah, I got nothing to plug.
You have a website or anything to talk about, like a website or with the Willie Legacy thing? What's that?
Willie Legacy thing, WilliePLegacy.com. Yeah, WilliePLegacy.com. Check that out for the Willie P Legacy. Lots of D Rangers videos online. Lots of other stuff. If you feel like you need to part with some of your money, give it to somebody else. Maybe Irish Mythen or Adam Carroll. How about that?
Adam Carroll was my guest last week. Yeah. It has felt like for someone who I only met maybe one or two times. It feels like just hanging with an old friend here, Jaxon. So I look forward to getting to do that backstage at Pembina next year.
Likewise, pal. Thanks for the time.
All right, I'll send you off
with this little number. When the revelry is over and you want a little more, I be the one. I will be the one. No juice, just pulp and pith and rye. I will be the one. I will be the one. I will be the one to hold you. I will be the one who told you. Misery or bust, history is just a series of wistful abuses and rich folks' excuses. When all your open doors are closed, each and every asset froze, I will be the one. I will be the one. I will be the one. I will be the one to choose you. I will be the one to amuse you. Little running jokes, every cunning word spoke into ears closed like buds of a rose. When all of your friends are gone, and you know your time ain't long, I will be the one. 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 Thanks, man.
That was wonderful. Thank you very much, sir. We'll see you on the other side.
Right on.